All right, welcome to the final video of this tutorial series. I hope that you guys have been able to gather a really solid understanding of what this plugin or virtual instrument is capable of doing. And what I thought we would do in this last video is, as opposed to me talking through everything, I thought I would just go ahead, pull up a couple loops, and show this virtual instrument in action. So all I've done here is I literally chose the first 3 loops that stood out to me, and I've gone ahead and I've dragged them into a project. I've created a new project over here. Let's go ahead and have a really quick listen. We can see how this is sounding right now. Okay, so something very, very basic. I chose a synth pattern, did a little bit of effects treatment on this over here just to kind of tame it down. And now let's have a listen to these 2 beats. Okay, so you can hear kick and snare sound kind of cool. This background element, if I do a data zoom, you can see all this information here. It'd be really nice if we could extract that. And now let's have a listen to this one over here. Okay, so just 2 loops, and essentially what I'd like to do is resequence them. So the idea here is that I may do some talking. Well, I know I'll do some talking, but I'm not going to be explaining every single step. Hopefully you guys can follow along, and I just want to be using instances of Regroover Pro to resequence this and see if I can do any better with this loop. So let's get started. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to mute these 2 audio regions because we don't need those. Let's go into our instruments folder, and we want to grab Regroover Pro. And I'm actually going to grab 2 instances of Regroover Pro over here. So we'll grab another one. I'll just name these. Let's call this beat 1, and this one, let's call it beat 2. Now the next step is I want to be dragging in my loops for each one of these, and I've already gone ahead and exported these to my desktop. So I'm going to go to my Files tab. This is my first beat. This is going to go into beat 1. Go ahead and drag this in here. It's done an analysis. Excellent. Let's move over to our next one, and we'll drag this one in here. Okay, these are both set to host sync mode, and the 120 BPM is already in the file, so everything should work. So now if I go ahead and play this, we're going to hear essentially the same result that we had before. Okay, perfect. All right, so let's get started. Now, first things first, I think it'd be really nice if we could try to isolate some of those elements. Let's listen to the beat 1 over here. I'm just going to go ahead and solo this, and I just want to hear what this is doing. Let's see how it did. Okay. Okay, brilliant. We have a really nice clean layer there. Awesome. Well, let's just power down these 2. Actually, we can power down this as well. Okay, so right on its own, it did a pretty good job. Maybe what I can do though, let's bring some effects in. Let's see if we can brighten this up. We lost a little bit of high end. It's on some of those other layers, but let's not worry about that. Maybe a little bit of saturation. Okay, this one for now, let's go ahead and mute this. Maybe we can try to drag some of these patterns around, see if anything different happens over here. You know what? I'm just going to keep it nice and simple. We'll stick with this straight sample. Actually, it would be nice if we could do if we could do 1 downbeat over here. So let's go into our layer 2, and I'm just going to go ahead and I want to try to isolate one of these kicks. We'll use, okay, this one over here. I can just drag this in. This should be fine. And I'll click, drag, hold, and let's drag this to C5. We'll go into our editor tab. We'll just clean up this sample, drag this in point and this out point. Let's see how this sounds. Excellent. It sounds pretty good. We'll go ahead and do this. Maybe I'll bring my volume up a little bit. Awesome. Okay, now I just need to draw a MIDI event over here. We need to move up to our C5 and switch to the proper tool. And I want this downbeat. I need it to happen at the right spot. So just very simple. Okay, let's go ahead and I want to add this here. And I also want to add it over here. Make sure that we're on the proper note. We need C5. Let's go back. Okay, something happening on the end. All right, now let's focus on B2. We'll go ahead and mute this for now. Let me just bring up my console, make sure that everything is looking good. Actually, these two, don't even need these anymore. Let's just hide and disable these. We'll get rid of them all together. Okay, let's see how it did in terms of isolating these layers. Go ahead and listen to this one. Okay, this over here, that sounds pretty good. Okay, I want to get rid of this stuff over here. Let's go into our split section, or rather our annotation tool. And I just want to take these guys and let's bring them. And also I think we have some more over here as well, but it's going to start here. Let's just see if we can clean this up a little bit. And this, I can really send it to any layer. So we'll lock this one, we'll lock this one, we'll lock this one. So we'll just send this to here. We'll go ahead and split. Okay, so now that cleaned it up a bit. Looks like I forgot a section over here. Let me take this and we'll send this one over to this one as well. Let's see how this layer sounds now. Okay, maybe one more thing I could do is also engage a gate here. So we'll bring our gate up, and I want to do that from here. Okay. Okay, so we lost the decay here, but that's not a big deal because one thing that I can do right off the bat is I can take this one and let's make this go out of out 2, and we'll engage this output in Regroover B2 out 2. We'll just close this down. And now what I can do is I can use some of my own reverbs that I have built into my DAW. So for example, let's go to my effects section over here, and I want to go to my Valhalla Vintage Verb, and I'll just drag this into here. And then now it's at 100%. Let's have a play. Okay, so not a big deal in terms of losing that decay because we can bring it back. This is way too much, so let's dial this back to something a little bit more neutral. Okay, let's have a listen. Okay, this one, let's go back. Let's open up this. Let me have a listen. We'll add a little bit of high end here. Let's bring this volume down though. All right, it sounds pretty good. Okay, I'll tell you what, I'd like to bring a little bit of EQ into this again. Let me go back to my EQ, and I need a little bit more thump on this. Okay, I think that sounds pretty good. We'll go ahead and stop that. Okay, it'd be nice if we did some reversal things. So let's see what we have here. Maybe we'll go into Regroover Pro 2. Okay, where is that happening? Nope, I think it's happening here. We'll go ahead. Okay, I think it'd be cool. Let's come out of our annotation mode. I think it'd be cool if we just grabbed one of these and I could just sample this. Let's bring it in. And the idea here would be that I can reverse this. So we have this. Let's go ahead and reverse this. And now we should have a nice, it's not as much as loud as I wanted it. I can go ahead and bring that up. Looks like it applied that gated effect. That's okay, because we can send this out to the same reverb. Okay, so now we have that element, and we have that in here. Let's go ahead. We need to program that to C5. So let's go ahead and just draw this in. And we need to find a spot for that to live. So if I bring this back, let's go back to the beginning. Okay, and this has to happen obviously before. Okay, not sure how that sounds in context, but we'll bring back our mixer. Double click to open this, and I want to use the same send. I got my Valhalla vintage verb over here. We can bring this back. Okay, and I could probably take this, and I want to do the exact same thing, so I can go ahead here, bring it over here. Now, one other thing I could experiment with is adjusting the actual layer markers over here in terms of changing the pattern. But this looks pretty consistent right across the board, so I don't think I'll bother doing that. Let me have a look at Regroover Pro 2. We'll look in our layers section. And again, this is pretty consistent as well. But essentially what we've done now is we've just taken some elements, we were able to solo things out, isolate them to an extent, and essentially regroove a whole performance. And then on top of here, you know, I could do really whatever I wanted at this point. Okay, so anyways, that looks pretty good to me. Now, one thing I could do is I could send these all out together, and they could go, for example, to a common bus, and then I could do some processing on this bus. So for example, I could do something like, let's add, I don't know, we'll add a CLA 76 or something like that. Bring this in. Really anything I wanted at this point, but just for a reference, let's go ahead and let's bring these two back in, and let's have a listen to the original in terms of what we had. I'll have to reactivate these tracks, and we'll go ahead and unmute them. This is what we had in the beginning section over here. And because of the way these loops were, we had some patterns that were just happening throughout the whole thing. It's not really something that you could do editing wise, but when we take a look at what we were able to do here in terms of extracting these elements and using two instances of Regroover, so just really opens up the possibilities in terms of everything that we can do. Now at this point, like I said, I like to leave things as audio. So I would just go ahead, right click, and I can transform this to an audio track. And we'll go ahead. I'm going to uncheck remove instrument, and we'll take our fixed tail. We'll leave that off. Now this is just going to go ahead, and now I have an actual audio file of this particular area over here. Nice clean loop. And if I wanted to go back to MIDI, I could transform that back to an instrument track. And we have the same thing. Now for this, here's the other opportunity I have. I have my beat 2. I could, for example, take this. Let's leave this set to clip length. Let me just close this for a moment. And zoom out a little bit. Now what I could do is I could just create a new audio track. And then as opposed to having to render it or anything like that, if I'm happy with this pattern that I created for beat 2, I can just drag this, wait till that render happens, and then let's just drop this on a downbeat over here. And now I have my beat 2. And at this point, I could simply right click and I could disable this track. I could even hide it if I wanted to. I don't need to use it anymore. And now we have just this beat that was happening. So lots of different workflow possibilities in terms of being able to resequence stuff. Now, perhaps it would have been better if I chose something where I could have used the layer markers a little bit to kind of move the sequence around and have it kind of skipping beats. But I think this gives a pretty good indication of the type of thing that we can do. And we know we have all these tips that we can do. Now, last but not least, if I really liked what I did with this beat, so for example, if I said I ever want to have something simple, so, I mean, that's pretty cool. What I could do is then just go ahead and I could save this. So I could go File and let's just go Save Project As. Keep in mind, the default location it went to is my desktop. If I wanted to change that, we can go to Settings and Default Save Path. Let's put this to my Documents, and then I have third-party libraries. And where is it? Regroover. We'll go ahead and click Open. Now, if I was to go ahead and do the File Save As, you'll notice that it went right to the spot that I wanted to. And then I could just call this test beat, and perhaps, let me just make a groove 3 course, and I've put it in here. Go ahead and save that. Now the idea here, quite simply, is that I can recall this at a later date. So we're currently sitting in this session. Let's just save the Studio One session. Go ahead and click yes. Then if I wanted to go ahead and create a new session, I could go ahead and do that, 120 BPM. Let's just put something on the desktop for now. Go ahead, push open, push OK. Now, if I went into my instruments and I dragged in my Regroover Pro over here and I went into project and I wanted to load a project, I can go to Groove 3 course, test beat, Regroover. Keep in mind, this is in 120. Which is the same as what we are working with. Let's go ahead and click open. Now it's going to go ahead and it's brought in the exact same project over here. And it's literally like leaving where we left off. Now let's say it was at a different BPM, for example. Let's say this was at 125. In fact, let's just remove this track and instrument. So this is at a different BPM. If I drag in Regroover again and I want to go to load that project again, we'll go to Groove 3 course, test beat. You'll see that this option is flashing the sync. It's because it's at a different BPM. Let's go ahead and do this and power down the layers that I don't need. But now we have this done. And if I need to make any edits in terms of adjusting, or let's say that I wanted to, resequence this or force or merge different layers together, I could go ahead and do that. But the point is, we have a way to be able to recall the different projects that we have, and we have this really nice workflow. But to be honest with you, in my opinion, the best thing that we could do with this project over here would be to export the stems. So anyways, that wraps up this course for me on Regroover Pro. I really hope you guys got something from this. This is a really fantastic plugin. I've been using it on a record that I'm working on right now.